Brittany could feel the weight of the darkness as she entered the park, an ominous canopy that clung to the trees like a shroud. It was an ordinary place by day, filled with laughter and the innocent joy of children playing. But as dusk descended, a sinister transformation overcame the once welcoming haven. For 10 long years, a malevolent presence had lurked in the shadows, a twisted soul hunting the vulnerable under the guise of the park's tranquility. Brittany, unaware of the park's grim history, was drawn to its quiet charm. Little did she know that her life was about to become entwined with the haunting legacy of a faceless predator. The town had whispered of the unspeakable acts committed under the cloak of darkness, yet most dismissed it as local folklore. But Brittany couldn't ignore the eerie atmosphere that seemed to thicken with every step. She brushed off the chill that crawled up her spine, attributing it to the evening breeze. As she strolled along the deserted paths, a distant rustle echoed through the trees, setting her on edge. A primal instinct urged her to flee, but curiosity anchored her in place. The fading sunlight painted grotesque shadows that danced around her, conspiring with the encroaching darkness. Unbeknownst to Brittany, eyes watched her every move from the concealing depths of the park. The twisted soul, a master of the macabre, had identified his next victim. The malevolence hung in the air, a tangible force that only grew stronger as the night unfolded. Brittany's casual stroll transformed into a harrowing journey through the heart of malevolence. The park, once a sanctuary, devoured her innocence with each passing shadow. Unseen eyes tracked her, and the lingering echoes of distant footsteps wove a sinister symphony. As she meandered through the maze of trees, the atmosphere became palpably oppressive. Brittany's instincts screamed at her to flee, yet an invisible force compelled her deeper into the abyss. The park seemed to warp and twist, its once familiar paths now a labyrinth designed to ensnare her. Suddenly, a distant whisper slithered through the air, chilling her to the bone. It was a voice devoid of humanity, a dark melody that danced on the edge of sanity. Brittany's pace quickened, her breaths ragged as she sought an escape from the invisible menace. The malevolent force closed in, the shadows conspiring to birth a nightmare. Brittany stumbled upon a desolate playground, its swings creaking in rhythm with her pounding heart. A flicker of movement caught her eye, and terror seized her soul as she glimpsed the silhouette of the predator. A macabre figure emerged from the darkness, face obscured by the veil of shadows. Brittany's heart raced as the realization struck. She was prey in a deadly game that had unfolded for a decade. The malevolent force, a faceless hunter, had found its next victim in the unsuspecting Brittany. Brittany's breath caught in her throat as the ominous figure stepped into the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. The stranger's features remained hidden beneath a hood, casting an impenetrable darkness over their face. Panic surged through Brittany's veins, but a paralyzing fear rooted her to the spot. The park, once a haven of laughter, now echoed with the haunting symphony of the malevolent force drawing closer. The stranger's footsteps echoed through the night, a rhythmic drumbeat that heralded a dance of dread. As the hooded figure approached, the shadows clung to them like malevolent tendrils. Desperation fueled Brittany's survival instincts. With trembling legs, she turned and fled, each step a desperate plea for escape. The park, once a familiar landscape, had transformed into a nightmarish maze designed to ensnare its prey. The darkness whispered chilling promises, the malevolent force relishing in the pursuit. Branches clawed at Brittany as she sprinted through the labyrinthine paths, her gasps for air drowned out by the ever-present echo of footsteps. The hooded figure pursued her with relentless determination, a spectral wraith in pursuit of its prey. As Brittany rounded a corner, she stumbled upon an abandoned carousel, its once joyful music replaced by an eerie silence. The air thickened with dread, and she felt the stranger's presence closing in. In a desperate bid for escape, she ducked behind the rusting machinery, praying that the shadows would conceal her. The hooded figure emerged into the clearing, their gaze scanning the desolate landscape. Brittany's heart pounded in her ears, the silence shattered only by the distant creaking of the swings. The malevolent force seemed to sense her proximity, its unseen eyes narrowing in on her hiding place. Brittany's breath caught in her throat as the hooded figure lingered near the carousel. Every heartbeat thundered in her ears, the sound a desperate reminder of the life hanging in the balance. The malevolent force, an unseen predator, seemed to toy with her, reveling in the anticipation of the impending confrontation. A gust of wind whispered through the silent night, stirring the leaves into a ghostly dance. The hooded figure, still as a specter, turned away from the carousel, and relief surged through Brittany. It was a fleeting moment of respite, a chance to elude the grasp of the malevolent force. Summoning every ounce of courage, Brittany slinked away from her hiding spot, moving in the opposite direction of the hooded figure. The darkness clung to her like a second skin, and she navigated the treacherous terrain with a silent determination. The park, once a symbol of innocence, had become a battleground for survival. As she ventured deeper into the shadows, Brittany's senses heightened, attuned to the slightest disturbance. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound, fueled her paranoia. The malevolent force, though momentarily deceived, was a relentless pursuer, weaving through the darkness with an uncanny expertise. A sudden snap of a twig echoed through the stillness, and Brittany froze. The malevolent force had detected her movement. Panic clawed at her chest as she desperately scanned the surroundings for a new sanctuary. The hooded figure, drawn to the sound, turned and fixed its unseen gaze in her direction. The chase resumed with renewed intensity, a deadly game of cat and mouse played out in the shadows. Brittany darted between trees, her footsteps a desperate heartbeat in the symphony of the night. The malevolent force, undeterred by the darkness, pursued her with an unrelenting determination. Brittany's lungs burned with exertion as she sprinted through the labyrinth of trees, her footsteps a desperate drumbeat in the night. The malevolent force, unyielding in its pursuit, closed the distance with an eerie persistence. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but a spark of determination flickered within. In the heart of the park, Brittany stumbled upon a dilapidated gazebo. Its skeletal frame loomed in the darkness, a haunted monument to the once happy gatherings that had taken place beneath its roof. Desperation etched across her face. She darted inside, seeking refuge from the relentless pursuit. The hooded figure, a phantom in the shadows, advanced toward the gazebo. Brittany's breath caught as the malevolent force circled the structure, its unseen eyes scanning for any sign of her. She pressed herself against the decaying wood, praying that the darkness would be her ally one last time. The malevolent force paused, as if sensing her proximity. Brittany's heart pounded in her chest, the pulse of her fear echoing through the silent night. In the ominous stillness, the hooded figure turned toward the gazebo, and for a moment, time seemed to hang in suspense. With a sudden burst of courage, Brittany bolted from her hiding place, sprinting toward the edge of the park. The malevolent force, now fully aware of her location, pursued with an unsettling calm. Each step brought them closer to the climax of the deadly dance that had unfolded in the shadows. As Brittany neared the park's exit, a flicker of distant lights provided a glimmer of hope. The town, oblivious to the nocturnal horrors within the park, beckoned as a haven of safety. With every ounce of strength, she raced towards the border, the malevolent force trailing behind like a vengeful specter. The town's lights grew brighter, a beacon of salvation on the horizon. Brittany burst into the open, gasping for breath as she stumbled onto the familiar streets. The malevolent force, thwarted by the boundary between park and civilization, halted at the threshold, its unseen presence lingering in the shadows. As Brittany collapsed to her knees, the weight of the ordeal pressed upon her. The park, once a serene retreat, had become a realm of nightmares. The malevolent force, though momentarily denied its prey, lingered like a malevolent specter, a reminder that darkness could shatter the illusion of safety. Albert couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong as he stepped into the park. The atmosphere was heavy with an eerie silence, and the dimly lit pathway seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness. He had always enjoyed the park during the day, but tonight was different. The lampposts flickered sporadically, casting unsettling shadows that danced on the ground. Albert's unease grew with every step, but he couldn't put his finger on what exactly was bothering him. As he strolled deeper into the park, he noticed a young couple ahead of him, oblivious to the ominous aura that enveloped the surroundings. Trying to dismiss his unease as mere paranoia, Albert quickened his pace to catch up with the couple. However, the feeling of being watched lingered, intensifying with each passing moment. The distant echo of footsteps became a haunting symphony in the otherwise silent park. Suddenly, the young couple stopped in their tracks, exchanging worried glances. Albert's heart raced as he approached them, sensing the tension in the air. The girl, her eyes wide with fear, pointed to the shadowy foliage on the side of the path. There, barely visible in the darkness, stood a figure, a silhouette watching them. Albert's breath caught in his throat as the figure stepped into the feeble light. A sinister grin adorned the face of a man, his eyes devoid of any humanity. Panic set in, and the trio sprinted down the winding path, the maniacal laughter of their pursuer echoing through the desolate park. They zigzagged through the labyrinth of trees and bushes, desperately trying to lose the relentless stalker. The once serene park now felt like a trap, closing in on them with every passing moment. Albert's mind raced, considering every possible escape route, as the maniac closed the gap. The park, once a place of solace, now became a claustrophobic nightmare. The darkness seemed to swallow them whole as they ran, and the sinister laughter echoed louder, bouncing off the trees like a haunting melody. Albert's breaths came in ragged gasps as the trio burst into a clearing, surrounded by towering trees. The maniac closed in, his footsteps growing louder with each passing second. Panic set in, and Albert scanned the area for any sign of escape. The moonlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting an eerie glow on the clearing. The young couple huddled close to Albert, their eyes wide with terror. The maniac, now visible in the dim light, reveled in the fear he instilled. His laughter echoed, sending shivers down their spines. Desperation fueled their resolve. Albert noticed an old, rusted gate at the edge of the clearing. Without a second thought, they sprinted towards it, the maniac hot on their heels. The gate groaned as Albert pushed it open, revealing a dilapidated path leading to what seemed like an abandoned mansion. They rushed through the overgrown courtyard, the once grand estate now a decaying relic of the past. The maniac pursued, his laughter echoing through the empty halls. Albert, driven by a surge of adrenaline, led the group through the labyrinthine corridors, hoping to find a way out. The atmosphere inside the mansion was thick with dust and the stench of decay. The creaking floorboards beneath them added to the haunting ambience. They stumbled upon a staircase that led to the upper floors, and without hesitation, they ascended, the maniac's laughter still echoing below. As they reached the top, they discovered a dimly lit room. The air was stifling, and the shadows seemed to dance with malevolence. Albert scanned the room for anything that could help them. His eyes fell upon an old wardrobe, its doors slightly ajar. With trepidation, Albert opened the wardrobe, revealing a hidden passage behind it. The group hesitated, their eyes meeting in silent agreement. The maniac's laughter echoed from below, growing louder and more unhinged. Without a moment's hesitation, they entered the concealed passage. The narrow, dimly lit corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, the walls closing in on them. Their footsteps echoed, drowning out the maniac's laughter. Yet, an unsettling feeling lingered. They were not alone in the hidden passages. As the group navigated the concealed passages, the air became heavier, and the darkness seemed to press against them. Albert's mind raced with questions about the mysterious mansion and the enigmatic figure pursuing them. The couple clung to each other, their eyes reflecting the shared fear that gripped them all. The hidden corridors led them to a chamber adorned with faded tapestries and ancient furniture. It felt like stepping into a forgotten era, frozen in time. The oppressive silence hung in the air, broken only by their anxious breaths. Albert's instincts urged him to keep moving, to find an exit from this twisted labyrinth. The passage eventually led them to a door, and beyond it lay a moonlit garden bathed in an ethereal glow. Relief washed over them as they stepped into the open air, escaping the oppressive atmosphere of the mansion. But their respite was short-lived as the maniac emerged from the hidden passage, his malevolent gaze fixed upon them. The garden, though serene, carried an unsettling aura. The maniac advanced slowly, reveling in the fear he instilled. Albert, driven by a newfound determination, looked around for anything that could aid their escape. In the corner of the garden, he spotted an old well with a crumbling stone cover. Without a second thought, Albert rushed towards the well, pulling at the cover with desperate strength. The couple followed suit, driven by a shared understanding that this was their chance to evade the clutches of their pursuer. The maniac, sensing their escape, quickened his pace, the laughter morphing into a guttural growl. As the cover gave way, a gust of cold air emanated from the depths of the well. It seemed like a passage to another world, and with no time to spare, the trio descended into the darkness, leaving the maniac standing alone in the moonlit garden. The well led them into a network of underground tunnels, damp and cold. Albert led the way, guided by a distant glimmer of light that promised an exit. The couple, still shaken, followed closely. The tunnel seemed to stretch endlessly, but the distant light grew brighter with each step. Finally, they emerged into the cool night air, greeted by the familiar sight of the park, now bathed in moonlight. They had escaped the clutches of the maniac and the haunted mansion. The trio, though physically exhausted, felt a surge of relief and triumph. As they made their way out of the park, the echoes of the maniac's laughter faded into the distance. The park, once a place of solace, now held a darker legacy in their minds. Albert, the young couple, and the park itself carried the shadows of that night, a tale of survival etched into their memories. The story of the dark park and the maniac became a whispered legend, a cautionary tale for those who dared to wander into the shadows. And as the trio moved away from the park, the moonlight cast long shadows behind them, a reminder that some secrets are best left undisturbed in the depths of the night.